People who don't have a dad. Who's the worst person your mom brought home? My mom's boyfriend kicked me out of the house because I kissed a boy. Ever since I was young, my mother's brought all types of boyfriends. Men with man buns, obscenely long arm hair, and drunks with neckbeards. Whenever I smelled the stench of Newports at the door, I knew that was my cue to hang out on the fire escape and lose myself in a book for a couple hours while I heard my mother scream. Sometimes she'd have boyfriends that'd make her scream from pleasure and others that hurt her in ways I can't write here. Despite her many boyfriends, my mom tried to love me as best she could and demanded I respect her and these men she brought. What respect meant to her was working from a young age. Her rule was that every day I had to bring home $20 from the age of 9 years old. Obviously I couldn't apply for a real job, so I did some shady stuff. That meant doing runs for people, carrying heat when cops were nearby, and acting as a decoy. I did whatever I could to scrap money and took a lot of beatings as well. Even though my mom was strict about the $20 rule, I knew how hard she was working every night to provide for the two of us. She always worked 2 jobs and had no days off. The men she'd sleep with were usually her bosses, and that was the only way she could get some time off. Eventually one of her bosses stuck around more and more. I didn't think much of him, but he'd call me Squirt and bring me Happy Meals, so I was starting to like him. I never had a proper father figure, so I figured, oh, this man gives nice things to me without me having to pay. He must be good for mom and me. He stayed for a couple months, and the next thing I knew, I had a stepdad. Him and I didn't talk much at first. When he did, he either gave me a toy or told me to run over to the bodega to pick up smokes. That was our relationship. Because my mom and him were dating, that meant she didn't have to work 2 jobs anymore, and I didn't have to bring in $20 every day. I thought that life was getting better and we were on a come up, but that's when my mom's boyfriend started getting worse. When he found out I wasn't making money, he started to resent me. He'd slap me in the back of the head at any given moment. Unprovoked, mind you. When he lost something, the first thing he'd do was trash my room and tell me to clean up my mess. And worst of all, if my mom refused to satisfy him, he would beat me with a belt. I was 15 during all this, and I knew that one day I had to get rich. I just never knew how. But my options got thinner when the incident happened. One day my best friend Tommy told me that he needed help with his geometry homework. I was good with math, so I told him to stop by my place and I'd help him out. While I tried helping him on my room, he got frustrated and started tearing up. I tried calming him down, but he must have been dealing with something he didn't want to say. When I hugged him, he pulled me in for a kiss. In extremely bad timing, my mom's boyfriend walked in on us. Look, I'm not into guys, but I had to take the fall for Tommy. My mom's boyfriend came in and started laughing at us, so I punched him in the face and told Tommy to leave. That night I received the worst beating of my life. I still have scars of glass and I can't sleep in certain positions because of it. That night my mom's boyfriend told me to get a job and that every week I had to hand in my paycheck for rent. I found this weird because him and my mom were working, but I did it anyway. I started flipping burgers at a Checkers after school every day until 1 a.m. I started slipping up in school, but all I was concerned about was keeping a roof over my head and my mom's. For all of my junior year and senior year I didn't have a dime to my name and college wasn't in question. I was content just looking after my mom and I, but even then that wasn't enough. My Checkers store came under new management one day, and the manager fired all the cooks without notice, including me. When I came home that day I was sick to my stomach because I had to report that I no longer had a job. Just as I expected, my mom's boyfriend threw my clothes out the fire escape and kicked me out. I stayed a couple nights at Tommy's place and wondered about my mom. While I was at Tommy's I talked to him about me losing my job, and he actually put me on to his dad. His dad owns a moving company in the city and even offered me a job. I started working there and moved up the ladder in only 2 years. It was during this period that I learned about running a business and how to properly use your money. I didn't care about college. I was getting real-world experience. If I needed to learn something, I just got my own job. Eventually I moved to a different city in an area that was up and coming. I noticed there was a high demand for movers. So I got a couple buddies of mine and we rented trucks and started a moving company. Before I knew it I was doing what Tommy's dad was doing. I was able to scale the business to work in multiple similar neighborhoods. By the age of 24, I was making 6 figures a year. I regret waiting so long, but eventually I went back for my mom. When I went back to my old apartment, the place was a mess. There were dishes everywhere and trash not taken out. And my poor mother, she had white hairs, wrinkles, and a purple eye. Her boyfriend lost his job when I was working at Checkers and forced my mom to go back to working 2 jobs while taking care of his man-baby self. She cried in my arms and I told her to go to my car. I packed a couple things and got her out of there and moved her in with me. I brought her to my home and I promised her that she never had to work a day in her life again. She looked at me like I was her hero. That's all I wanted to be for my mom. Edit. A lot of you also want to know how you can get out of your financial situation. Since I know most of you aren't going to build a business, and that's okay, I recommend using Bloom to learn to invest. The reason the poor stay poor is because they don't know how to use their money. Let your money work for you. Be smart and learn to invest, especially while you're young. Some kids I recommended Bloom to are making $500 to $1,000 a month just recommending it to friends and doing all the challenges.